Most people hiring a property manager in San Diego don't really know what to ask and they don't really know what to look for. My name's Steve Welty. I'm the broker owner of Good Life Property Management. We've helped make owning rental property easy for over 1,000 odd property owners in San Diego County. And today I want to give you 4 easy steps to use when hiring a property manager. This is some good information, some things you probably have never or have not thought about. And so I'm excited for you to watch this, and I'm also going to include a link to the checklist so you can use it and make the whole process really easy. All right, step 1 is you want to pick 2 to 3 companies to interview. And the way most people go about this is they'll look online and or referral. Common sources of referrals are friends, real estate agents, wealth managers, insurance brokers, maybe a CPA. A lot of them know management companies, so it's good to start with maybe 2 you found online and maybe 1 referral. All right, step number 2 is the online reputation check. So go online and search Yelp and Google for these companies, and you're going to be able to read their reviews. Now, Yelp is usually a little more credible because they have an algorithm that screens out what they don't consider relevant reviews or real reviews, whereas Google, anyone can put a review up and it just sticks. So Yelp's a little bit harder to game the system there, so a little more credible. But you really want to look for companies that have at least a 4-star rating or higher. This just shows they have a commitment to, really making their online reputation great, really making sure they deliver a great experience for both the owner and the tenant, because property management is a tough business to keep a good reputation. So you want to make this hiring process easy, so screen out any company that's not at least 4 stars on Yelp and Google. All right, step number 3 is my favorite because it saves a ton of time and it's just so simple. It's just the phone call test. You call the company, and if they pick up the phone and are able to answer your questions, they move on to the next round. Now you might think, well, that's silly. Of course they're gonna pick up the phone. No, about 20% of companies we've found will pick up the phone, and even less will actually have someone pick up the phone that can actually help you. So that's a really good bellwether how serious they're taking the customer experience, because if they don't pick up the phone when you're not a client, how often are they going to pick up the phone when you are a client? So that's what I look for. They got to pass the phone call test and they move on to the next round. All right, step 4 is the 10 questions. These are 10 questions to ask. You probably have other questions you want to ask, but consider asking these questions. The first is, how is the company set up? And there's 3 main ways property management companies are set up: departmental, portfolio, and hybrid. Now, portfolio is one manager handles everything. Departmental is it's all split up, so there's a leasing person, an applications person, a maintenance person, an accounting person, etc. And then there's a hybrid of the 2. And why this is important is you want to have an idea of the pros and cons of each. So portfolio, one person manages everything, so it's good because you have one point of contact. Some of the cons can be that they get burnt out because they do everything, and also maybe if they leave the company or they're on vacation, it's hard for someone else to jump in. Departmental is good because they have experts at each department, so an expert leasing person, applications, blah, blah, blah. But they each have a slice of the pie, which the problem can be sometimes is then no one really owns the whole pie. And so you end up talking to a bunch of different people and no one really owns the whole experience. So that can be an issue. Question number 2, which we'll kind of elaborate on that more, is who will be my property manager? Who am I going to work with? And this is really important because this is really who's going to be managing your property. And no matter what the system is, you really want to look for a company that gives you a single point of contact. Not that you won't ever talk to other people, but you really want someone that is responsible ultimately for your property. And you want to really know who that person is. Like, what's their background? How long they've been with the company? What did they do before? You may even go so far as to ask to talk to that person, because this is really who you're going to be working with, and you want to make sure you vibe and you feel comfortable with their expertise and all that. And so leading into question number 3 is, how many units does this person manage? And so when you think back to the portfolio departmental hybrid model, I'm going to give you some thresholds of how many units each model can usually handle before things start to go wrong, so that you're aware. So portfolio, about 100 units max is how much one person can handle in a portfolio model. So be cautious if they say their portfolio and they manage like 150 units or something. Hybrid, maybe 350 max, and then departmental, maybe 450 max. And then there's a thing in our industry called the 400 unit, or it's not called this, but the 400 unit kind of problem, or the 400 unit kind of gap, is when companies get to right about 400 units, oftentimes the systems that brought them to that threshold start to break down, and it can lead to having a company have to restructure, which is fine, but it can also lead to issues where the clients stop getting the service they're used to because the company's having to shift around. So it's not like saying don't hire a company at 400 units, but you might dig a little bit more if they're right around that 400 unit mark and ask some more questions about, okay, well, I've heard about this issue at 400 units. Are you guys, how do you run your properties? Are you currently restructuring? Things like that, just so you get a good feel for that. All right, number 4 is, what was your average days on market for vacant properties last month? This is a very specific question. Look for a very specific answer. Not about 10 to 14 days on average. No, like last month, because this shows they actually track the number, they take the number seriously, and it shows they're serious about customer success. So question 5 is, how are repairs handled? And what I like to look for is, I want to be alerted of every repair in advance. Now, management companies do have a maintenance threshold, which means to ultimately fix something or get approval, it's usually $250 to $500 for a repair approval, but it's good to be notified in advance. And then if it ends up costing more than that amount, they'll contact you. And I really look for, I'll ask about different scenarios with repairs when I hire, like a lot of this was built off me hiring a management company for a property I own out of state. And I really want a manager versus a messenger. And so a messenger, you can tell a messenger company because their maintenance limit is really low. It's like $0 or it's like $100 or $200. You want a manager who actually is gonna manage the property well and know what to do and not just ask you what you want to do in every situation, because you're hiring them to manage the property and run your business. So usually a $300 to $500 maintenance limit is good, and make sure they give you photos of what's been fixed, and that's usually a good bellwether that they're a transparent company as well. So something to look for. All right, number 6 is, do you inspect the property regularly? You want them to go in at least annually, provide a good report with photos and action items of what they're looking to do, and just understand what the inspection covers. Most inspections are more walkthroughs in the management space. A home inspection is usually $500, give or take. So these annual walkthroughs are not necessarily home inspections. They're more, checking kind of visually, making sure there's no damage, making sure the tenant is in compliance, things like that. But you might ask them, make sure they do it, and make sure that you get a report and kind of see what that report looks like. It's usually a good idea. All right, number 7, what are your fees? So I believe fees should be tied to important management benchmarks or goals. So if the manager performs well, they should earn a commission. And commission, it's like oxygen for a business. And so what I've learned is that when commission is tied to something like a performance model, it usually gets more focus. So I don't like flat rate companies that, 100 and X dollars or whatever, 200 X dollars a month, because there's no incentive for them to raise the rent. Whereas if it's a percentage management fee, when you get paid more, they get paid more. So there's more incentive to keep the rent at market, competitive. Another common fee is leasing fee. I want my manager to be hungry to lease the property to a great tenant. And so a leasing fee usually ties performance to that result, what I'm looking for. If it's often included, it's just kind of another step. Again, there's no oxygen in that system for the company, no revenue, and so often it won't get as much attention. And same thing with the annual inspection. When this is just rolled into a management fee, oftentimes it falls behind and it's not given that proper attention. So those are 3 things that are important to me when I'm looking at a management company that you should also consider. And lastly on fees, just realize that most companies in San Diego, they wash out to about maybe $25 to $75 a month difference. And management fees are tax deductible. So you figure a 40% tax bracket, let's say, there's a $50 difference between company A and company B. After taxes, that difference is about $28 roughly. So there's not a big difference. So make sure you go with the company that you feel is going to actually do the best job and be a good manager, not just a messenger, and make your life easy. So that's some things to think about. All right, number 8 is there ever a fee to cancel? Pretty straightforward. Look for maybe a month-to-month agreement or a 1-year contract month-to-month. After that is very common, and you want to know if there's any fee if you decide to cancel, sell the property. Also look for automatic renewals. Some contracts just renew automatically for a year, so just be aware of that. Number 9 is, what will the property rent for? This is something everyone's going to give you a rental analysis when you look for companies, but what I look for is a very specific number backed up by data. anyone can say it's between 2,000 and 2,500. Okay, well that doesn't show me exactly what it's going to rent for. I want to see about a 10% range, and I also want to see data behind the findings. So look for those things. It shows professionalism. And lastly, what do you estimate I'll spend in maintenance costs the first year? I love this question because 80% of problems between property owners and management companies are generated because expectations are not met. So this just gets you right on the same page with the management company. No matter what they say, it just helps you understand how they think about repair costs. So if it's vacant, you're going to want kind of an idea of what you need to do to get it rent ready, and they should be able to give you a rough estimate without even signing up of what that might cost. And there's things you might not think about, like smoke alarms, rekeying the property, maybe curb appeal. So you want to get each manager's kind of take on what you might need to do and the costs associated with that. And then ongoing maintenance. A lot of companies don't talk about this, but there will be ongoing maintenance costs, and so you should budget accordingly. This is just going to make your life a lot easier, and when a repair comes up, you'll be prepared for it. For instance, a 10-year-old house or newer, maybe budget just 3% of the rent annually. Each year goes into an account, and that way when something comes up you can pay for it. And that can go up to maybe 12% for a 50-year-old house. If you're somewhere in the middle, maybe 20-year-old house, 5%. You can be as conservative as you want. The idea is that you're prepared and you're setting aside the money. That doesn't always mean you're going to spend that money. Some years you may never spend that money, and then you might spend it all in year 3, but it's just a good way to set yourself up for success. So that's it. 4 easy steps to hiring a San Diego property manager. I've dropped a link to the checklist. Please download it, and it hopefully will help your job make it a lot easier. Thanks so much for watching.